certainly if any site or any sort of crypto project is promising or guaranteeing returns, that's a huge red flag.
Hi, this is Steffi and welcome to the FinancialFox Investing and Innovation Ideas with a Twist. In this episode, I'm going to put the lens on the fast-growing crypto space that is attracting more and more people every day, but there is something you need to aware of, which is crypto scams and fraud, because it is the Wild West out there, and it's very important that you do your own research to understand where are you putting your money. So stay with me as I lift the curtains on the crypto backstage reality with my special guest, Erica Stanford, founder of the tech networking event Crypto Curry Club, and now author of a new book just released on Amazon, Crypto Wars. But before we go into the episode, remember that I'm not a financial advisor and all the content here is for informational purposes only. Let's get into the episode. Hi, Erica, how are you?
Hi, yeah, good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, listen, it is great to talk to you. I mean, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
I guess there was a lot of work behind it. It's very detailed, a lot of insight about the dark side of crypto, really.
Yeah, I think when the publisher asked me to do the book, I agreed and naively thought, 12 chapters, 12 weeks, it'll be fine. And totally underestimated how much work it would be. 12 months more like.
How long did it take?
It took most of a year. I think from March until December last year. So about 10 months. I think if I look at all of the time together, I think it was about 6 months full time for research and writing, and then trying to make the writing sound better.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. But I think it's a very important things that you have done, which is kind of highlighting all the crypto scams, the frauds, the project. They were not genuine project. And what they did, they just basically rob investor money, promising something that never happened. And I think maybe this is here where we should start. Maybe do you want to kind of give a little bit of background of what have you been doing 2017-18, and how did you manage to see all this dark side of the crypto space? Yeah. That many people don't see. Many people, they just jump on the bandwagon without, paying attention on the red flags, really.
Well, I mean, I was sort of around the crypto space from 2017, so through that sort of ICO period. So, watching a lot of that from the sidelines. So you see the hype, you see some of the crazier projects at the time. I heard about BitConnect at the time, for example. So part of it was just what you saw, I suppose, from being exposed to the space and seeing some of the crazier stories, especially in that ICO era. But a lot of it, to be honest, I mean, stories such as the OneCoin project, which has turned into a massive Ponzi scheme and is still going on to degrees today. I first heard about that just before lockdown. So at the end of 2019, years after it had even sort of been closed down by law enforcement. And I only heard about it because somebody sent me a link to the BBC Missing Crypto Queen podcast series. And and then you start listening to it, and then I heard more about that one, and that was one of the biggest scams that has ever really affected crypto. And I think what is interesting in the space is that the main sort of scams around the crypto ecosystem and the main sort of Ponzi schemes and so forth, they don't target people who are in crypto. They go out of their way to target people who aren't in crypto. So, it wasn't necessarily that you heard about any of them, particularly by being in the space. But what was interesting from the Missing Crypto Queen podcast series, I listened to the first episode and was absolutely hooked. I just sort of devoured the whole podcast series. It was amazing. And then reached out to Jamie, the host from the BBC, who'd done all of it, and asked if he might be willing to speak at one of our Crypto Curry Club events, and this was before lockdown, so we could still meet in person. And he came and agreed to come, and came and spoke and told the most incredible stories of sort of behind the scenes from the from the podcast series and some of their research findings. And it was really, really good afternoon. And we had about 60 other people there, sort of guests at that lunch, listening to Jamie. And quite a few people from the crypto community came forward and told me their stories of sort of seeing other crypto scams from the early days and what they'd been trying to do to sort of to out them and talk to law enforcement about some of these scams. And quite a few of these people had been, around the sort of crypto space since day one. And, from their efforts to try and sort of out scams or inform people about scams, they'd had death threats, they'd had threats, a lot of them had sort of given up trying to out the scams because they felt it wasn't even worth it. So I had people coming forward from that event to tell me all these incredible stories about sort of other scams and the other sort of biggest incidents in the space, and even bringing me on to the social chat groups that the scams host. And what's interesting with the scams, they operate in the public. They have these sort of public groups on Facebook and on social media where they promote their projects and where people talk about them, and sort of it's these whole really active communities. And even some of the scams that have been stopped officially by law enforcement and have been outed as being scams, they still have active communities in some cases going on. And I was brought into some of these communities to sort of be a bit of a subtle observer, and what is really, really interesting and shows how the scams get so big. The scams are often run by organized criminals. They're run by people who know exactly what they're doing, who know who know the skills, who know the tactics needed to get people on board. And they also have almost unlimited money because they do so well. So they've got the best people in marketing, they've got the best people in content, in persuasion, in network marketing, and so forth, who know exactly what they're doing to bring in as many sort of victims as possible, and to create this whole sort of really loyal community around them. So you've got lots and lots of people still really sort of feeling very loyal and really defending these projects, and not yet seeming to know that it's a scam, sometimes even after they've been outed by law enforcement.
Yeah, it is crazy. But do you think it's maybe because anonymity? I mean, one of the things that project in the crypto space they champion is the fact you can keep your privacy, you can be an anonymous team, you don't have to disclose your name. And this is something that for some projects is one of the good things, but actually is very bad because you don't have people that are accountable for that. Do you think it's maybe there or not just?
I don't think it's just that. I mean, I think certainly there have been cases where people have used anonymity, and certainly have used sort of, for example, not having registered offices in certain countries to their advantage when their intention has been to scam, but not always. Certainly there have been some of the biggest scams where it's known who the founders are, and they have offices and they sponsor real world conferences and host real public events in public places, and people get to know the founders and know where they're based. I know if you just look at OneCoin as an example, it's well known who the founders were, and one of them, the Rouger, has been missing for a few years. It's not now known if she is still alive or not, but certainly whilst the scam was going, they were public figures and had real world offices that people could go to. So, some of these scams, yes, do use anonymity, but then there's also good projects with good intentions who use anonymity for other purposes. So it's not always a bad thing. And then there's plenty of scams whose leaders and offices are in the public space and are willing to meet with people and put on such a show that one has to wonder. Sometimes some of them don't necessarily start out as scams and sort of become that way, and one has to wonder how much of it they really do believe almost, or how brazen they are to be so public when actually all they're doing is sort of conning money out of people.
Yeah, this is really crazy. So what do you think are the missing point? Why people believe this scam? Are they missing to do any kind of research or anything they should be doing? What's the power that these people with public face, with all this?
I mean, there's a lot to it. So in part, it's because the scams are going after often vulnerable people and after people who aren't in the crypto space. In part, they're often going after people in countries and in areas where they don't have access to be able to research as much as we might, for example. But also on the other side, the scams are very good. They're getting better and better, and they're getting more sophisticated, and they really are able to employ the best people at marketing and the best people at network marketing. So I think there's a few factors to it. Partly they're going after those who don't necessarily know to research, but also the websites look good. The claims they make look good. And often the scams, as a tendency, will claim they've got partnerships. They'll say they've got a partnership with MasterCard or with Visa or with certain banks or certain regulators or certain governments, or they'll list companies that they've got as clients or as partners and so forth. And, the reality is these partnerships don't exist. And if those companies then find out about it, often they'll try and do what they can to disassociate it, to make it known that they don't have such a partnership. But the scams will say whatever they want almost to get people to believe it. And then if you look at it from a sort of a consumer's perspective, as humans, the inclination is to trust. You see a website, it looks good. And unless you really expect there to be a scam, which if you're new to a space, why would you? Then you would take things at face value. So it's partly because the scams really, really use very, very good people who know exactly how to scam people, and they're willing to lie quite brazenly. So people believe that, and one could argue, well, people should question that. But you see a good website making claims. How is one sometimes supposed to know that isn't true when you're led to trust other websites? So one has to have sympathy, I think, for the victims. But then the other factor is one of the main tactics used by the biggest scams, and certainly how some of the scams have gotten so big, they tend to use network marketing. So that's multi-level marketing. It's effectively it's the same as a Ponzi scheme. The only difference is that when it's called network marketing, it's sort of legal, albeit legally grey, but they're selling a product. And so the scams will go to people, and because it's crypto, and there's been so many people have done well out of crypto and the volatility, there's been so many price hikes. They're using claims and using sort of promises and numbers and all these promises that people get rich quick. But people always read news stories about that happening to people in real life. So they're using some of these claims that sound very real. But then also, but how network marketing works is not the scammers directly going into communities. They have this reward structure in place. It's effectively a pyramid scheme whereby if you bring somebody into the scam, you get money, and then if they bring somebody into the scam, they get money, and because they pay out initially, they pay out to people initially. The first people that invest, they pay out to, and all looks good. So what happens? They hire the best people in multi-level marketing. They hire the best marketers who know exactly how to bring people on, and then they'll bring people on who invest and who get their money back and who make profits. So they see it's all good, and then those people go to all of their friends and their families and their communities, and then those people go to their friends and families and communities, and then you've got people selling to people that they know and buying from people that they know and trust, and who've said that they've done well out of it. So it's people who believe their friends and they believe their families. And why some of them get so big, you've got religious leaders preaching these scams to the congregations, and community leaders in some areas promoting these scams to their whole communities, and influencers doing the same. And people are buying from people that they trust.
Which is the really the bad things. So Do you want to tell me the three worst crypto scam or best crypto scam?
What by worst you mean affected the most people, and by best you mean the most sophisticated and clever?
I don't want to say your favorite, but the one that you say those has been really, for different reasons, they have been the worst scam.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest one in terms of numbers, in terms of sort of has affected the most people, sort of almost under the radar, and it now looks like it's brought in about $25 billion, was or seems to have been the OneCoin, which was a Ponzi scheme from the start, and they were basically selling thin air. They claimed to have a cryptocurrency, and in fact, they never even had a cryptocurrency. And they invented this concept called auto mining. So in cryptocurrency, you've got this concept whereby crypto is created through mining, which uses sort of computer hard drives and energy to create new crypto coins. And they had this concept whereby if you buy their OneCoin coins, they will auto mine, so you'll get lots more of these coins and they'll go up in value. And they made all these far-fetched claims about how if people would invest, that they would get enormous amounts more money. And in reality, they never even had a cryptocurrency. What they did have was a very, very sophisticated team of network marketers who knew exactly how to bring people in. And it now looks like they brought in about $25 billion, and the founder, Dr. Uja, is still missing. She's been hunted by the FBI for years now, and it's most likely she's probably dead, but that's unknown. So that seems to have been the biggest one. The one that still has probably the most people talking about it in the crypto space is Quadrigas. That was the leading crypto exchange in Canada, and people trusted it because it was local, because it was Canadian, because it looked good, and then the founder wrote a will and went on honeymoon and died all very suddenly in India, and because of a whole series of sort of what looks like suspicious events and circumstances, nobody in the crypto community, or at least nobody that I've met, and certainly very few people in the crypto community, believe the founder actually died. It looks as if it were sort of an exit plan, because it looks like millions and millions, 250 million total was lost in Canadian dollars, but millions and millions of dollars were sort of disappeared out of this exchange leading up to the death, and then the founder sort of died in inverted commas in mysterious circumstances. So I think that one is still mysterious, because it later got ruled to have been a scam from the start, and the two founders seem to have been involved in sort of money laundering and criminal activities from since before the exchange even began. But that one, still has people talking, because people still want the body to be dug up, and still want some sort of proof that the founder actually died, because the vast majority of people don't believe he ever died, believe it was some sort of rather clever cover up. So, the answer is still unknown in that one. And then, I mean, probably the other largest and most famous one, and I don't want to put favorite to these, because they've damaged a lot of people and taken a lot of money, but and done an awful lot of damage, I would argue, to the sort of the industry as a whole. But the other largest one and most famous was BitConnect. And again, it's similar to OneCoin, a total Ponzi scheme. They claim to have invented a sort of a trading bot, and promised all of these returns, forgetting the fact that the most advanced banks and hedge funds around the world, who have unlimited money to be able to trade, and the most advanced softwares in the world can't guarantee those returns, or can't guarantee returns at all, let alone those sort of returns. And they were promising these vast and crazy claims. And then after their first scam had closed down and disappeared and lost their people billions of money, they launched another, and people still invested. And they were so brazen and threw on these lavish sort of events and parties and all of these things to bring in people. So, I mean, they're suddenly the largest, most famous crypto scams that managed to con an awful lot of people.
Yeah, and they are still happening now. We were discussing earlier on about the two founders of the South African crypto investment firm.
Yeah.
They disappear with 69,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah, it was $3.6 billion worth, and just suddenly went missing.
So what are really the red flags that people should look at when they are deciding to invest in any kind of currency? I mean, that is not a mainstream, because, if you go on Coinbase or Binance and you just take one of the hottest coin, at least, they have got some kind of history, some kind of traction. So kind of play safe, even though it's still a volatile space. But getting into these token sales, this is where even for people working in the financial market, is difficult to have some kind of parameters to evaluate a crypto project. But for people like they don't have this knowledge, it is really like jumping down the cliff, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many red flags in crypto, and you mentioned some of the crypto exchanges. The reality is, even recently, there have been crypto exchanges just basically exit scam, make promises and take in people's crypto, and we're talking billions of dollars here, and then because of how they stored it, they weren't storing it in a manner secure for their users, and obviously we're lying to their users presumably about how they were storing it, but still managed to leave. So I mean, I think the first point is you really can't trust anyone or anything. I mean, of course there are exchanges, I mean, such as Coinbase, just as an example, that they're a large company, they're publicly listed, they've got offices, they do what they can to ensure the sort of the security of the crypto they store. They're presumably less likely to exit scam and wouldn't sort of benefit from doing so. Whereas other exchanges are more sort of down the criminally intentioned, it appears. But I mean, some of the main red flags in crypto, a lot of the scams make promises or guarantees. They'll say, well, if you send us your Bitcoin, we'll double it in X amount of time. Or if you send us your Bitcoin, you'll get X amount of interest every day or every whatever. And I mean, the confusing thing is, you've now got in crypto, you've got these sort of crypto lending platforms and staking platforms, which do actually pay out and which aren't scams. So the confusing thing is knowing which sort of claims are scams or not. But certainly if any site or any sort of crypto project is promising or guaranteeing returns, based on investment or so, that's a huge red flag, because it isn't possible to do so. Now, some of the staking platforms and DeFi are slightly different to that.
Because otherwise everybody watching that has got something in DeFi. They was, oh God.
Right. And I mean, that is the one of the ongoing problems in crypto, is because, some of the scams will make claims saying, if you give us X, we'll give you back Y. And for everybody that says that's a scam, there are other projects that sort of almost legitimately have achieved that. So it can be hard to differentiate. But, I think we research the team that's behind it. And also, I mean, Google is a great help. And you've got some of these, the scams, there's information about them on Google, and there's, often somebody will say, watch out, it's a scam, and, pay heed to that. They're not all trying to stop you from getting rich. And I mean, one of the problems again then in crypto is that, you've got people calling Bitcoin a scam. You've got Bitcoin maximalists calling Ethereum a scam in some cases. You've got crypto sort of diehards calling the US dollar a scam, which doesn't help. Because then if somebody calls a scam, people are less likely to listen. But certainly if there are any promises or sort of guarantees made about investment returns, and also the scams will make these great claims about partnerships or about what they achieve, such as, if they've got Bitcoin mining equipment, or that they've got this trading bot or whatever it is, and that's how they make money. Now, with a little bit of research, one can sometimes find out that this mining equipment doesn't actually exist, or that this trading bot doesn't actually work. So I would say just do an enormous amount of research, and if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. And if in any doubt, there are exchanges that are sort of publicly known, and things like Bitcoin, where it's known at least that isn't a scam.
I think one of the things for instance, I've been doing work in financial market. One of the things that happen with the company is kind of very important, the dialogue between the founders or the management team with the shareholders. So, a team that kind of proactive to engage with the community of shareholders is a good sign. That doesn't mean that, that everything they said is great, but it challenged them as well, because they have to kind of manage expectation of the community. From a team standpoint, what do you think will be a good approach or a bad approach towards the community towards the investor community?
You mean if a team is legitimate and actually wants to bring a community on board?
Yes.
I would say that that's part of it. Engage with the community, explain what you're doing, teach the community, provide content that the community, show what you're doing, show how it works. And a lot of the sort of crypto projects are open source or have open source content where they can share what they're actually working on. So I would say just be as transparent as one can be. And one of the trends with some of the scams is what you said earlier. They hide who's really behind it, or some of them have even made up profiles of people who are behind it. One scam famously used a photo of the actor Ryan Gosling, claiming that that he was one of the graphic designers or whatever there. Another one took a load of photos, so I think it was from a British boys' school, claiming that they were their team. And, some of these scams have been so sort of brazen with their photos, but then, one can with Google do reverse image searches and so forth. So if it goes down that route, but what I would argue with, if a project wants to, has good intentions and really wants to engage with the community, just be as open and transparent as possible. Let people get to know who's behind it, give real social media profiles, have real sort of live, events or Q&As or virtual webinars, whatever that is, where people can actually get to know who's behind it, ask questions, look at the code, look at the technology, see what's behind it, and just be as open and transparent as possible. And then, the second thing is, if you can get some real partnerships or real sort of companies behind you and on board, that will do a lot to show legitimacy.
Yeah, I think it is a very important element that you said about educating, because if you really talk to some of these funders, you can understand how much they know, and their proactivity to kind of tell how the technology works, and their willingness to engage with the community to educate is very important, because we know how education is a big problem in crypto. And, the approach to say, right, I'm going to show you how that works. That's a very important thing. And it's something that actually not many projects are doing. So we are kind of basically saying that it is the team is actually more important than the project. So when you are looking at investing something, you really need to be happy with the team and the people behind it as the first things, and then you can look at the project and see, if you like it, if you think it's got any potential. Do you think that is fair to say?
I think the team has an enormous amount to do with it. The intentions of the team, how well known they are, how well respected they are. That does carry a lot of weight, because ultimately they're the ones driving it, and they're the ones responsible for bringing in money and growth and so forth. I think the thing to be careful of is scams are often guilty of claiming to have people on their teams that aren't on their team. So you constantly hear about cases of people complaining that scams have used their photos or their LinkedIn profiles or their names or whatever on their websites, when the people whose names and photos are being used have no idea, have certainly never agreed to that, and then have a hard time getting their names and everything disassociated from the scam. So that is a problem where people's identities and profiles are faked. So one thing that one can do, if in doubt of who really is behind it, and it's people who are known and trusted and respected in the space, potentially email them or send them a message on LinkedIn, if they're a part of the team and are happy and proud to be a part of the team. They'll be public about that. They'll have that on their social media profiles, or they'll reply, or they'll have other public postings about it. If you've got somebody who's listed on a website promoting a project, but who has nothing about it on their profiles and never mentions it, then it's quite possible that their name has been used without their permission. So one does just have to be careful to check that the people who a project claims to have on its team actually are on that team.
Because at the end of the day, it's your money. You don't want your money to disappear. You want to make money on that. So I think it's also a responsibility for each of us to don't blame somebody else because you lost money, but blame yourself because you haven't done enough research. Because, as I said, it is your money. You should be comfortable where you're putting them in the hands of who you're putting them. Mm-hmm. So, incentivizing everybody to do as many research as possible. And but let's not just talk about the bad side of it, because there are great projects like you mentioned in the book, such as Brave, for instance. They actually raised lots of money, but they've been building, they've been developing, they've been doing good stuff, and now they are in a completely different position they were a few years ago. So let's talk a little bit about the bright side of the crypto industry, and what do you think we are going?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is it. And, there's been so many problems and scams and projects fail and all of that. But equally, the point is, Miss, it's the fast, the space with the fastest sort of most exciting innovation that I've ever seen. And what is, exciting in the crypto space is such a brain sort of drain of people leaving, traditional well-paying jobs in traditional retail and banks and events and everything to go into the crypto space. I mean, one of the exciting things is almost every week I have a message or a call or something from somebody who's in a C-suite of one of the large global well-known companies who is either interested in leaving their jobs to work in the crypto space, or has been offered a job in the crypto space and are leaving these roles to work in the crypto space. So it's such a fast moving space. And the one thing that constantly hits me, I mean, if you see at our Crypto Curry Club events, the people in those rooms are incredibly intelligent and so fast moving and working so hard and driving innovation. And they've left jobs in traditional industries and in sort of some of the larger corporates because they see it as moving too slowly. And then some of these crypto startups they're in, it's go, go, go. I mean, everything's constantly moving and changing and progressing. So that is really exciting. And you see some of the startups in the space who are using either blockchain or crypto or digital currency or whatever to totally change how we look at, everything from real estate rentals or property sales or, or logistics or retails or incentive structure, or you've got crypto could be used for micropayments or to totally change the remittance industry or paying per content or paying per use for things. So you've got all of these sort of real world applications, and all these different startups and corporates are using these technologies, and things are changing so fast. And, certainly there's been a lot of the more traditional, banks or remittance companies have payment companies have really had to change policies and change how they look at finance and change how they approach their customers, because you've got some of these newer, basically better startups come along with better ideas. And yes, they need to tweak a few things and expand a few things. But you've got some of these ideas that some of the crypto, DeFi, and blockchain startups are bringing about, and the technologies they're bringing about. Certainly, I see it on a daily basis within our cryptocurrency community. The big companies and the big banks and the big corporates are watching those startups, and they want to have a piece of them, and they want to invest in them, and they want to know exactly what's going on. Because otherwise, unless they keep an eye on them or partner with them or buy them out, they will get behind, and that they're very, very aware of that.
So picking up on that, I think you're completely right. Some projects, they are too far ahead. They are probably too early, but things are changing. And obviously we have seen, institutions getting into the space. We have seen amazing progress with El Salvador and some other country. They are looking to implement Bitcoin, which is great stuff. But then we have got the resistance from, the old traditional institution, and then we have got the government, and all of that is kind of putting pressure to go for a complete mainstream adoption. So how do you think those dots can be connected, and how do you think things are going to change to lower these resistance?
Yeah, I think the first thing is companies and corporations are some quickly getting on board, some slowly getting on board. So I think partly it's a question of them just finding out more, understanding how the technology works, getting to meet the startups. And the minute you see some of these corporations meeting the startups, you sort of almost see the light bulbs going off of ideas of what could be done. And sometimes looking to partner with these startups to see how things could get implemented. So I think partly it's just awareness raising and opening up the sort of the community so that the corporations and the regulators and banks and startups can also meet each other. I think one of the problems has been, at least certainly in the UK, is regulation. It's so slow in the UK, and we've seen recently a few companies either sort of voluntarily leaving the UK or being forced to leave the UK. So because of the regulators can't keep up with the pace of innovation here, and I think one of the practical problems in the UK, we've had coronavirus lockdown, which perhaps wasn't anticipated. We've had the disaster that was Brexit, which has and will probably continue to consume resources. So I imagine crypto regulation is sort of further down the priority list, behind those, which is perhaps understandable. But that has been a problem. And I think we will, unless something changes, we'll see more and more of these companies perhaps look to where they can be based in Europe and so forth, just on a practical level. But then what I think we're starting to see now, at least in the crypto space, is regulation is slowly kicking in, and some of the companies that were startups just a few years ago are now big growing companies that have incredible systems for things like secure custody of crypto, the ability to send or store crypto in a totally secure way, which is secure to an institutional level. That you just didn't have that many years ago, with such a good user experience. You've now got these blockchain and crypto analytics firms who can track down crypto, and it's absolutely incredible when you talk to them what they can do and how much they know. And some of these firms, they've got such advanced software now that can do things and track crypto and trace things, for example, if it is stolen or from a theft or whatever. And these companies and that software just didn't exist in the first days of crypto. So things that had to be done manually then or couldn't be done then can now be done really quickly. And also the user experience, I think, in crypto has been the main thing. And I think anyone that's sort of even looked at crypto till now will pretty much agree that the ease of use and user experience is not good. And it can be incredibly difficult and incredibly complicated. But you've now got things like the naming services coming in and much better user experiences where, we won't have to have crypto addresses or anything. I'll just have you saved in my contact list as Stefania. And instead of sending you a photo via WhatsApp, I'd be able to just send you whatever currency instantly, just like that. So I think that will come in, that the ease of use, and where it won't be sort of going through crypto addresses, it will just be through your contact list, through your email list, through a sort of a named service thing. So I think that the user experience is sort of almost the last thing that is changing now. That the security options for crypto are so vastly improved. And is improving every day. So I think that we're last of all now, we're sort of seeing the user experience increase for mainstream adoption.
Yeah, it is an important point, particularly in DeFi, because it's so kind of can be so complicated to just get into this new world of decentralized finance with different wallets, with different chains, and the majority of people don't understand how to do it, so they just don't do it and they are left behind. But I completely agree with you. User experience, it is a very important point, something to deal with, and regulation in a way, if it's coming, is not too bad, because if it can help some project to to be more transparent, to comply with some kind of rules that makes people more comfortable, I think that will be good as well. So what last things, what are you more excited about in the crypto space?
In crypto, I think the main thing I'm excited about is sort of ease of use. Whereby, so I mean, the trading side, the volatility side, I'll be the first to say I can't really sort of feign interest in that. But we are seeing these sort of new, more stable currencies come about that can actually be used for payments, for micropayments. So what interests me the most is how crypto can actually be used in micropayments. And if you look at the remittance industry, for example, it's an absolutely barbaric industry. All they do is serve to insane amounts of money and insanely high percentage charges from the poorest people around the world. I mean, remittance companies charge up to 30%, but 10-14% is standard, and that's of people who earn the least just because they don't have access to banking. And you've now got these startups and companies providing people with digital wallets so that anybody who's got access to the internet or access to a smartphone or so can have their digital wallet, and for the first time ever can receive and store and send money digitally for really low rates. So I think that's incredibly exciting for people all around the world. And then, crypto for micropayments, I think that's a huge opportunity where currently, crypto transactions sometimes are more expensive depending on which currency you're sending. You've got sometimes higher fees to send them, but you've also got cryptocurrencies where you can send really, really tiny amounts basically for free of charge. And then if you've got more sort of stable currencies, which are coming about, there's nothing to say you can't, instead of having to subscribe to a newspaper or pay £10 a month to Spotify or whatever, there's nothing to say one can have a system where you pay, per every little bit of content that you consume. Or if you reshare one of my tweets, I could pay you 1p for every tweet that you reshare, or every person that you drive to a site, or every person that you refer to my book, or whatever that is. You've got all these possibilities where people could pay individually for every bit of content, or individually for rewarding somebody for tweeting about them or sharing their content or so. So the ability to have these micropayments, which can be sent basically for free, which simply can't be done digitally, economically with fiat currency, it opens up such a huge potential for loyalty rewards, for incentives, for rewards, for content, for all these different use cases. So I think we'll see an enormous growth in that with crypto being used in these sort of micropayments, sort of rewards or sort of micropayments economy.
Erica, completely agree with you. So where people can go and find you? Maybe share something about crypto clubs.
Yeah, so we run the Crypto Carry Club. So until lockdown, it was the main crypto community in the UK. It's now gone somewhat more global with digital content. But we host, when lockdown eventually, hopefully, if lockdown ever ends, and we can get back to London and to cities, we host real life, in-person networking and educational events about crypto and about blockchain and emerging tech. So they're super fun. So hopefully those can restart again. But anyone can go to cryptocurryclub.com. We have a weekly newsletter, the Crypto Courier, that's out every Friday. It's totally free. It just summarizes what's happening in blockchain and crypto. We have a monthly publication, Blockchain Industry Review, with deep dive industry features and interviews with some of the people sort of really driving innovation in the space. And we have I have the Crypto Wars book. So Crypto Wars, Fake Deaths, Missing Billions and Industry Disruption. I think I got the order of that right. That's out on Saturday. So that's out really, really soon. It's sort of a book just hopefully light, fun, easy reading, but going into depth in some of the biggest scams, hacks and stories in crypto, and hopefully giving an explainer of what the space has been like a little bit, or at least the darker side of the space over the last few years. So that's available at Amazon. It's available at all local bookstores. It's available at the publisher Kogan page with a discount, Crypto Wars 20. But yeah, Crypto Wars, please buy that, and then you'll learn all about the last few years in the crypto space.
Exactly, and that's very important. So everybody should really read, because there aren't books out there like that. And, it took you a long time to gather all the information, which, these are not fairy tales. They are not, like crazy things. This is bad fairy tales, actually. This is the reality.
Well, I mean, that's the sort of the, I don't know if funny is the right word, but the sort of a strange thing with it is some of the stories you wouldn't believe. You'd think they were made up. They should be made up. They're so utterly bizarre and crazy and imaginative, and yet they actually happened.
The thing is, when you see like a project that, raise all this money, then shut out the website and put a tweet out, "Hi, thank you so much." I mean, that's really, I can't believe that happening. How can you do that?
Yeah.
And run maybe with 3 or 4 million that you stole from like people, they trusted you.
Yeah. And so many of the ICO, I mean, the book goes into some of the more bizarre ICO projects, from the sex and the dating and the romance related ICO projects to every sort of level of imaginative and crazy that you could ever imagine. And I mean, what was bizarre in the space is people just invented these projects out of thin air, and because of the time they got airtime, they got noise. So I think there's stories of every type of sort of crazy, unimaginable project that went on.
Yeah, just crazy. Anyway, well, we are just trying to educate and let people know that research is really important, particularly in the new space of developing and growing cryptocurrency. So go get the book and have fun reading it.
Thank you so much, and good to see you again, Stefania.
Thank you, Erica.
Hopefully see you at a curry in the not too distant future.
Right, this was a great conversation with Erica, and I would suggest everybody to go on Amazon, get the book, read it, because it's fun. There is lots of things you're going to learn from. Crazy project that you never believe they were actually a scam, but they were. And so much money that have just been stolen from people. They trusted somebody. And it is crazy, really. I was shocked, because it's not just 1 or 2 projects. It's like loads. And the book is amazing. And it is the first book of Erica. She's doing an amazing job with the Crypto Curry Club. So sign up for her newsletter as well. And maybe we are going to see you at one of her next event. And finally, if you're not subscribed to the Financial Fox, click the subscribe button on YouTube and our podcast, and follow us on social media to stay up to date with our recent news and interviews. I will see you next time.